Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be making a Depression era recipe of my grandmother's homemade vanilla cupcakes with pineapple filling. We're going to go over the ingredients for our recipe today, but remember, as always, we'll leave a link to the recipe on our webpage. All recipes on our webpage are ad-free and free to download, but let's go through the ingredients we're going to be using for the cupcakes first. The ingredients for the cupcakes are going to be flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, shortening, milk, eggs, and vanilla. And I'll go over the ingredients for the filling once we get to that point. So let me start getting these measured out and we'll go through the process of making the cupcakes. To start our recipe, we're going to start with a half a cup of shortening. So I've pre-measured these to make it a little quicker and easier, hopefully, so that I don't drag this process out for you. And there's our shortening. And then we're going to add a cup of sugar to the shortening, and that's just granulated white sugar. And what I'm going to do is cream the shortening and the sugar together. You can do this either with a pastry cutter like I'm using, or you can do it with a spoon, whatever works better for you. So let me get this cream together and then we'll be back for the next ingredient. Now that I have my shortening and sugar creamed together, I'm going to add in 3 eggs. I'm going to add in a half cup of milk, and I'm just using a regular whole milk. And then I'm going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm using a homemade vanilla that we made using vanilla beans. So there's my vanilla. And I'm just going to stir these together until they're thoroughly mixed. And then we'll move on to our dry ingredients. So the next step is going to be working on our dry ingredients of flour, baking powder, and salt. So the flour is going to be a sifted measurement. So I'm going to do 1 3/4 cups of sifted flour. And it does make a difference whether it's sifted or not sifted. So let's see. One of the things I like about this measuring cup is that I can see it on an angle and I don't have to like shake it or get down on the floor to look at it sitting on the table. So let's see if that's about right. So all I'm gonna do is just gently bring this down, see if that levels out to about 1 3/4 cups. And it does, so that's good. To our 1 3/4 cups, then we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So there's our baking powder, and there's our salt. All right. So I'm going to stir this together, and then I'm going to bring my wet ingredients back over and get these mixed together. Now it's time to add our dry ingredients in to what was in our bowl before. And if there are any items that we use in any of our videos, or in this video in particular, I'll be adding links into our description. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But we usually try to do that because we often get questions about those different things. So let me get this all stirred together and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all mixed. Now that we have this all stirred together and nice and smooth, we're ready to move on to the part that I normally hate the most, which is getting this into my cupcake tins. As I mentioned, the thing I hate the most about making cupcakes is getting the batter into the cupcake papers without making it a complete mess. So I figured I'd share a tip for something that I do that makes it a lot neater and easier. I'm just going to take a quart size wide mouth canning jar, I'm gonna throw my Soglite lid on top, and then we're gonna use that to pour our cupcake batter. So let me get the batter into the jar, and then we'll get our cupcakes underway. Now I have my jar filled. We're gonna get the cupcake pans filled, hopefully with a lot less mess than I normally do. So one thing that I normally use these lids for is I use them for when I'm making sun tea, and that is a great way to just be able to make my sun tea. Rehydrating our freeze-dried eggs, and it makes it easy because I can just mix the eggs in the jar and use what I want. And if I have leftover, I can just close the cover and put them right into the fridge. When the grandkids come over and I'm making waffles or pancakes, very often they don't want as much as I've made batter for. So again, I can pour it and it just easily comes with the cover on it right into the fridge so that I can save it for another batch. So that process was made so much easier with my Soglite lid on this canning jar. I used a spoon to get the last out of the jar to make a total of 16 cupcakes. Now this is going to make 12 to 18, depending how high you fill it, half to 2/3 full. If you went closer to the half mark, you'd easily get your 18 cupcakes. I'm just going to add some water to the unused spaces in the pan, just so that I don't have to worry about warping it. And then I'm going to put these into a preheated 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for 15 to 20 minutes, and I'll be starting to check them at about the 12-minute mark. While the cupcakes are in the oven, we're going to make the pineapple filling. And for that, we're going to use crushed pineapple, we're going to use lemon juice, cinnamon, flour, and sugar. So we're putting all of this in a saucepan so that we can cook it on the stove. We're starting with 20 ounces of crushed pineapple. And to that, we're going to add a half a cup of sugar. If you like it sweeter, you can go up to 3/4 of a cup. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. And there's 1. And 2. I'm going to give that a quick stir, just enough to kind of blend it together. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of flour. There's 1. And that's going to be our thickener for this filling. There's 2. And there's 3. And then optionally, you can add a little bit of cinnamon. I'm going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon to that, just for a little extra flavor. So let's get this over to the stove so that we can get this going. All right, so I've got this over a low to medium heat, and I'm just stirring that flour and cinnamon and everything in together. And we're going to bring this up. Once I have it mixed, I'm going to put it all the way up to a medium heat. We're going to bring this up to a boil, and we're going to keep stirring this until, instead of it having kind of this creamy look to it, so that it has a clear look to it. So let me get this to that point, and then I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like. Once your pineapple mix starts to come to a boil, you want to make sure you're keeping a close eye on it and keep stirring it so that it doesn't burn and stick to the bottom of the pan. Looks like this has a few more minutes to go. So it looks like our filling is about done, and it may be hard to tell because of the cinnamon, which adds a tint to this, but it is much more translucent. And it has kind of the consistency of a chunky applesauce. So we're going to take this off the stove, let it cool for a minute, check those cupcakes one more time. I think they're about ready to come out, and then we'll be able to get the cupcakes filled. So it's been about 18 minutes, and I'm going to check the cupcakes again. I'm just using a toothpick. Insert in. If the toothpick comes out clean, then your cupcake should be done. Okay, it was just under 20 minutes. The cupcakes are now done, and we're going to let these cool for a few minutes. We're going to let the filling cool for a few minutes. before we get these out of the pan. And then once they've cooled a little bit so that I know I can cut into them easily, I'll show you how we fill the cupcakes and get them prepped and ready to eat. We let these cool about 10 or 15 minutes, and now we're on to the next step for putting our pineapple filling into our cupcakes. So I've got a sharp paring knife, and I'm just gonna put it at an angle in the top of my cupcake. And I'm just gonna cut a cone shape out of the top of the cupcake. So I'm going in a little bit deep because we wanna have a good impression to put our pineapple into. So I'm just gonna cut that piece out. Take it out careful. We're gonna set this piece aside because we're gonna use it. Now we're gonna take some of our pineapple filling and we're gonna put that into the center of our cupcake. Try not to be messy like me. Maybe just a little bit more. And then we're gonna take the top piece we cut out, we're gonna cut it in half. And we're gonna take those two pieces, we're gonna set them on top of the filling. And then we're gonna do that for the rest of these, and I'll show you how to garnish them just before you serve them. While I'm finishing up the last two, I figured I'd give you a little history behind this. My grandmother was born in 1900. And my mom, one of three of her children, was born in 1929, the year of the stock market crash. So they lived on a farm during the Depression era, and all their recipes, I've been lucky enough to get many of them passed down to me from my mom. The cupcakes are my grandmother's recipe. The pineapple filling is an addition by my mom. She always made these for family events, for church events or church food sales, and they were always a great hit. So it's something I'm happy that I can make and pass down to the next generation. And hopefully this is a recipe that you're gonna wanna do the same with. So let me finish this last one up and then we'll garnish them and have them ready to go. Now that the cupcakes are all filled, we'll talk for a second about how you can garnish the tops. Now, one important thing to remember is any garnish that you put on the top, if the pineapple filling is still hot, it's gonna impact it. What I use is confectionery sugar, and I just sprinkle some of that on the top just before serving them. And it adds a pretty little color on the top. Now, if it's super humid out, if the pineapple is still hot, if you've stored these in the fridge and just took them out, that confectionery sugar is gonna disappear. You can also use a whipped cream dollop in the middle on the top. It's up to you, be creative on how you might wanna top these off. Another little tidbit of information is this filling also can be used to make one large pie, like a pineapple filled pie. You can also use it to make a batch of pineapple squares. So the filling is versatile. The cupcakes are great as they are, just with a frosting, or you could do a different flavor filling if you like blueberry or strawberry, or if you want to do some kind of a cream cheese filling in the middle. Again, be creative. Make sure you leave us a comment about what you would like to fill in cupcakes like this. But I'm gonna finish getting these topped off, and then these will be ready to serve today. And I'm sure Steve will enjoy taste testing one of these for me. And again, as always, links to anything we've used in the video will be in the description. The recipe will be on our webpage. And if you have any comments, any questions, make sure you leave them on the video for us. And until next time, take care.